That was very soft. So, Newton once said that every action has an equal and opposite reaction, but your gesture seems to be saying that designers are always revolting against what is very obvious. So, once again, namaste to this fabulous design community. It's an honor standing here today in front of you and delivering this short message which I have been asked to deliver today. Before I begin, there's a small exercise, there's a small activity which I wanted to engage with all of you. So if I may please request, if you can close your eyes for maybe 10 seconds and take a deep breath. So picture the surrounding that makes you feel complete, a space that gives you peace and comfort, a place where you truly belong. See where you are, notice what you're doing, and who is there with you. You may please slowly open your eyes. So whatever you just experienced, that place, the people, the feeling that you experienced today is your personal definition of belonging. To belong is to return to the roots, to the soil and the stories that first shaped us. In today's world where identities feel scattered and often borrowed, the most powerful truth still comes from the past. Our heritage does more than mirror who we are. It stands beside us like a parallel self, grounding who we are becoming. In rediscovering what has always been there, we find not nostalgia, but renewed relevance. A compass that makes the present less hollow and the future more of our own. So, my dear friends, belong is not just a feeling, it's a design principle for me. So, I'll talk about it in the session today. In design, we often speak of the future, like the forum we are attending today, the future of design. So we speak about the future trends, the technologies, the transformations. But this future only feels like home when it carries with it the fragrance of where we come from, isn't it? When we honor these roots, we create work that doesn't just impress, but also feels like home. It connects. We, the design fraternity, I wanted to state it today, are not just the custodians, are not just the creators of the future, but also the custodians of our culture, of our heritage. And that is something we should take ahead with us. Everyone here would remember the Prada and the Kolhapur Chappal moment. I'm sure, the design fraternity would have seen it on the runways a few days back. A luxury fashion house putting centuries-old Indian craft on a global runway. It sparked a lot of conversations and a lot of controversies too, but it also left a question, whose story was actually being told there? In fact, today I wanted to share my own story from Kolhapur. I was there, I still remember it very clearly. It was a small, dimly lit workshop, air thick with the smell of metal and also time. An elderly artisan sat there telling me about his age-old crafting techniques, skills passed from hand to hand, generation to generation, until they were left behind, pushed aside in the rush towards modern jewelry and the fleeting trends that left no space for history. He showed me some of his most remarkable pieces, and those pieces spoke about the memory, the method, the meaning behind them. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't just his story. There are hundreds like him in Kolhapur alone, and probably thousands more in India. Entire cities holding quiet, forgotten legacies, fading not because they lack beauty or relevance, but because, sadly, no one is looking today. But before I embark on that journey, I wanted to share a a little bit of example of what is happening around on the globe. Brands often draw heavily from India's rich craft traditions, the textiles, embroidery, motifs, but fail to acknowledge the origin of the artisans. This isn't just inspiration, it's cultural extraction without reciprocity. When a craft leaves its land without a story, it becomes merely a product. The craft is divorced from its community, and the community gains nothing. Artisans and communities lose recognition, economic benefit, and the young generation see no value in learning the craft. Our heritage doesn't need pity. It needs partnership. Design cross-pollination is obviously part of creativity, and exposure on a world map, on a world stage, can infuse renewed interest into the dying crafts. And so at Indriya, when we began this whole new chapter, the Indriya journey, I mean, some of you may be aware of the brand, it's a very nascent brand. We just celebrated our anniversary last year, but obviously we've been working behind the creation of the brand for the last 2.5 years. And when we were on this journey, we didn't have a grand sustainability manifesto, so to say. And as we mapped our entry into the many states of India, slowly our beliefs evolved into something deeper. How can we preserve these crafts in a way that feels relevant today and remain sustainable for tomorrow? It's about shifting the focus from fleeting trends to designs that carry the weight of history and the promises of enduring beauty that don't expire with the next collection drop. In embracing timelessness, we create work that can be loved, lived with, and passed down, offering value not just for the moment, but for generations to come. That's when we started our journey of what we call hyper-regionalization, which is understanding the culture at a micro level. Hyper-regionalization is the art of looking so closely at a place that you begin to hear its heartbeat. It is not the broad brushstroke of being Indian or doing something which is Indian, but the fine grain of this village, that weave, this particular street, and the stories that they have to unfold in front of us. India's story isn't one, it's a million-layered tales. Being one of the oldest civilizations on earth, the sheer amount of diversity in craftsmanship that is available for us to dive into is immense, and no other country can even come close to it. At Indriya, this vast craft legacy is our wellspring of inspiration. With over 3,000 documented crafts, I don't know whether you heard about it before or not, but these are the documented crafts, and then there are others that I think still get in the process of getting documented. So with over 3,000 documented crafts, each an intergenerational vessel of old wisdom, we see not just heritage, but a living treasure to be celebrated and sustained. Every 100 kilometers in India unveil a different story, a new emotion, a unique tradition, and a distinct craft. With every Indriya store, I was about to say India, with every Indriya store we open in a new city or state, we are not just expanding our footprint, so as to speak, geographically, but we are stepping into the cultural heartbeat of that place. And that is what we are trying to do with every geography that we enter. So what are we trying to do? Reclaiming traditional relevance begins with recognizing that crafts were never meant to be museum pieces. They were integral to daily life, shaping rituals, clothing, architecture, and identities. When we bring these crafts back into the modern conversations, we are not simply reviving aesthetics, we are restoring their place in our social fabric. Craft becomes a powerful form of storytelling because it carries the depth that no machine-made object can actually truly replicate. When shared with the world, these crafts become cultural messengers, bridging the gap between the past and the present, and allowing people to connect emotionally with something far greater than the object itself. Our journey at Indriya started simply by listening, observing, trying to understand the pulse. Along the way, we kind of realized what was hidden from the plain sight, in the eyes of the karigars from Tanzore, in the hands of the weavers in Kutch, and in the the grading precision of the artisans in Kutch. This realization became our story and the anchor for a larger vision to celebrate India on a world map, and not through just the surface motives, but by immersing into its very soul. Indra's design philosophy is anchored in a rich cultural continuum that celebrates the depth and diversity of heritage. We immerse ourselves in motifs, meanings, and memories of the past, understanding the stories, techniques, and symbols that have been passed down through generations. Each creation becomes a bridge between history and the modernity, resonating with today's sensibilities while holding relevance for the future. By anticipating the cultural shifts, the recent trends, the phenomena, the social economics which are playing in today's scenario, we endeavor to make designs that are timeless, meaningful, and deeply connected to the roots. And there are three key elements to our design philosophy. First being the wisdom of the past, which offers the comfort of the familiar, and that we kind of preserve and not erase. And there is a conscious effort behind doing that. We protect the cultures, economies, and identities which have been shaped by generations. And what do we do with that? A new age calls for a new tale. Obviously, it has to be relevant for today's audience, and that's the endeavor with which we create our products. So let me take you through a little bit of methodology that we follow in terms of the design process. So our regional approach is, as I said, is to observe and listen, to sit with local craftsmen, to understand the nuances of the jewelry, the significance behind motives, the stories, and listen to their everyday life and rituals, because finally, what they're creating is because how they're experiencing things around them. Over the past 2 years of building Indriya, we have journeyed to more than 30 cultural clusters, wandered through museums that hold fragments of a lost past, and sat with, I think, more than 200 artisans, listening, learning, realizing the immense wealth of the knowledge that we carry. We went back to understand the very core of the ancient techniques, and how, we understood how some of these motifs, a very basic motif like a peacock, how it travels from the west coast of our country to the east side, how it gets transformed from a two-headed bangle to sitting on a Tanjore painting, but the meanings of that kind of changes the moment the geography changes, the moment the craftsman changes. This is the true beauty of Indian craft. It is never just that single weave, a single painting, or a single karigari. It is the stories that they carry, stories that have been layered into thousands of years of legacy, shaped through culture, sustained by tradition, and immortalized through generations. And that is how we arrived at Indriya's most iconic masterpiece, ladies and gentlemen. I'm today glad to present to you Anantara. But it did not happen overnight. We spent months immersing ourselves in the history, culture, traditions of the Deccan, the land which gave the legendary Kohinoor. We went from karigar to karigar, craft to craft, museum to museum, speaking to artisans, uncovering layers after layers of meaning. And in that journey, we discovered how beautiful stories of jewelry have been forgotten, have been lost in translation, forgotten between cultures and diluted in time. That is where an intent became clear, to build something iconic with authenticity and to root the design in the ethnicity of the land. And from that conviction, Anantara was formed. Anantara was born in the land of Deccan. So quickly covering where Anantara came from. I mean, we went, we studied the temple. We were speaking to the craftsmen, we were speaking to some of the historians, some of the people from the museums, and we understood how temples were the center of learning in the bygone eras. How temple played a critical role in shaping the future, and how stories were depicted on the temple walls. And from some of those temple walls, we started deciphering them layer by layer, layer by layer. So we saw these beautiful, sculptures. Now, when you see these sculptures, these are also adorned with a lot of jewelry. So from the elephant, which is there on the side, to the Nandi, to the gods and goddesses, they all have these beautiful jewelry pieces which have been passed down from generations, but somewhere they have lost their meaning because no one today knows. I mean, this is a beautiful jalebi har, which is kind of present today in the world, but no one knows the meaning from where it is coming from. And that is something what we wanted to bring back with authenticity and with pride. Now, layering the jalebi har with Vishnu's chakra. On the left bottom, you see Vishnu holding his chakra, the sculpture. From there came the kasu. And kasu is just a golden coin, and that formed the next layer of the necklace. And also, Vishnu comes with his favorite Vahan, the Garuda. And Garuda then became the center masterpiece within the piece. And there were then a lot of layering in terms of, how Ganesha, plays a critical role in the beginning of every ritual in Indian households, and how when you combine it with Puluguru, which is again a very regional, jewelry, which stands for strength and courage, and when you combine it with Ganesha, it has completely different and very powerful meanings. And then how various, auspicious forms like the Om, the Nag, and the Kurma came together, and they were strung together to hold Ganesha in place. And that formed the second layer. Moving on from here, moving to the third layer, which was the Shankh, the Vishnu Shankh, and Goddess Lakshmi sitting inside Vishnu's Shankh. So that it was the cosmic reunion of the Vishnu and the Lakshmi coming together, forming the last layer. So that's the grand masterpiece called Anantara. So you saw how the storytelling, right from the temple architecture to the historians and the museum, flowed into our jewelry pieces. Obviously, there was months of research work, but how it also flowed down in terms of how we communicated it finally. I mean, the Kuchipudi dancer, the choice of a Kuchipudi dancer, reciting the whole story beautifully, that's coming together of design story. I know I'll take maybe another 5 minutes if that's okay. I'm running a little behind time. So from Deccan, we move to the land of the Marathas. And when a journey brought us to Maharashtra, we realized it wasn't just about craft, culture, or even the 10th century traditions. What unfolded was a deeper connection, a beautiful link tying the jewelry of the region to its agricultural splendor and the grandeur of the Maratha Empire. Can you ever imagine that jewelry can also be inspired by agriculture? So we looked at the grandeur of the Marathas, how, the jawar, the tushi beads, and the morbalas came together to define the jewelry landscape of the Maharashtrian, culture. And that kind of, shaped up the next that you are going to see, which is called Raj Mudra.
मेरी राजमुद्रा तुम्हारी परतों में चमके महाराष्ट्र के इतिहास का सार, गर्व का आकार और मेरा बेहिसाब प्यार। पहली परत में दिखे शिवाजी महाराज का चंद्रकोर तिलक, वज्र तिखार और शिंदे शाही का गौरव। दूसरी परत में छत्रपति का चिन्ह, तेजस्वी सिंह विराजे, बोर और चमेली के हार खिले। आखिरी परत है डोर साज की, भगवान विष्णु के दशावतार से सजी। मेरी राजमुद्रा महाराष्ट्र के गौरव में ढली शाही कारीगरी। तुम्हारी गाथाओं से कोई जितना प्यार करे, फिर भी दिल कभी न भरे।
So you see a very elaborate neck piece over there, but when you go into the details of it, you kind of realize that each and every element in that neck piece was actually inspired by the culture from there. And this is a short video of how the storytelling was then transformed through a very beautiful visual merchandising within the store. Each and every element brought to life through the visual merchandising. Can someone guess what this is in front of you? Is it a painting? It's a picture? Can you guess what it is? Real jewelry. It's not real jewelry. It's actually a masterpiece in its own. It's a rangoli. And that's how we brought another art form into picture. A rangoli artist, Shikha Sharma, who kind of did it in a very grand scale. This was around 110 by 65 feet of rangoli created to kind of bring alive the glory of the Maratha Empire. So what I wanted to end with is when you kind of deep dive, when you know your subject very well, there's a lot of buying in. We as designers kind of create a lot of beautiful stuff, but when it comes to your next stakeholders within your organization, it kind of becomes a little difficult to sell their story. But when there is a lot of authenticity to the work that you do, it kind of beautifully gets weaved together, and that is what you saw today. If I talk about, these kind of pieces are at they were more than 600 grams, but can you believe that we were able to, they just flew off within 2 days. Someone over a WhatsApp call, have you heard of jewelry being bought like that? Even online shopping, jewelry is less than 50,000. The average ticket, average bill value is less than 50,000. But products like these being sold on a WhatsApp catalog, that's the beauty of it, and that's what hooked on, our customers got hooked on to. With that, thank you so much.